So, you have just downloaded Lightroom for the first time and find yourself staring at the computer screen, unsure of what to do next. Well, fear not. In this video, I'm going to go through the basic start to editing any photo, focusing on the basic develop module of Lightroom and paying special attention to 7 sliders in particular. My name is Darren Donovan and I'm a C4 photo guide and host, hosting safaris all over Africa. The 7 sliders I want to focus on for today's videos are the exposure slider, the highlights, shadows, whites and black sliders, the dehaze slider, and the texture slider. I tend to start with these sliders and will return to the others that I missed at a later stage. The exposure slider adjusts the overall brightness of an image. Moving it to the right increases brightness, while moving it to the left decreases it. This helps in correcting under or overexposed photographs. The highlight slider in Lightroom adjusts the brightness of the lighter areas of your image. Moving it to the left reduces highlight intensity, helping to recover detail in bright areas, while moving it to the right increases the brightness in those areas. The shadow slider is all about bringing out detail in the darkest parts of your image. Think of having a dimmer switch in the blackest areas. The white slider is like a volume knob for the brightest parts of your image. It controls the highlights, those super bright areas that you can easily get blown out and lose detail if they're too bright. The black slider in Lightroom is like the opposite of the white slider. It controls the deepest, darkest tones of your image. Instead of bringing up the highlights, it adjusts the shadows to become more pure black. The texture slider in Lightroom is a bit of a chameleon. It's all about the impression of texture in your image. So it doesn't directly add or subtract any physical texture. Instead, it affects the contrast and detail within the midtones of your photos, which can make textures appear more or less prominent. If you have a photo that has some subtle texture that is just barely visible, increasing the texture slider makes it stand out a bit more. On the other hand, if the texture is too harsh or rough, decreasing it can smooth things out. The dehaze slider in Lightroom is a fantastic tool for removing those hazy, milky looking spots in your photos, especially with landscapes or shots taken outdoors on foggy days. It essentially adjusts the midtones, making them less desaturated and taking some fogginess out of the scene. Think of it adding a bit of clarity and punch to your image. It's particularly useful for photos where the overall color palette looks dull or muted because of atmospheric haze. Okay, so now that we have an idea of what these sliders do, let's use them on one of my images to see what these basic sliders can do. Okay, so here I have an image that I took last year in the Chobe National Park. Elephants crossing the Chobe River with lots of dust in the atmosphere which filtered the sun, so it really makes a great African image. So just the first thing that I'm going to do is just go onto the top here on my crop, and I'm just going to straighten it out for a start. Right, let's get my crop in. So now that we've got the elephants, we've cropped it in, I just want to remind everybody that editing a photograph is not so much about a step-by-step process, right? It very much is about look and feel, looking at the image, trying to see where your problem areas are and how you're going to fix those, right? So the first thing that I see here is that there's just a little bit of brightness on the water in front of the elephants. The sky itself, it maybe is a little bit light. I'm going to bring down the exposure, but I do like to just add a little bit of texture and dehaze just before carrying on with the rest of the sliders. So now that we look at this, I'm going to start by going to the exposure slider, and I'm just going to underexpose a little bit more just to bring in that rich color in the sky. So I'm not going to go too much, maybe around about 0.6 up. Right, now the next problem that we're seeing with the exposure that's gone down is that the shadows, especially on the elephants, is very, very low. So I'm going to bring the shadows up. Right, just like that. Then maybe now just bring the blacks up a little bit as well. Right. Okay, so that sorts that out. We've now got nice detail on the elephant. So if we look at the histogram here, we don't have any clipping on left or right. So we are in a good space. Now, I want to deal with this around here. So using the highlight slider, I'm just going to bring the highlights down a little bit. Which just brings out that detail on the river itself. We can definitely add some whites. Just over there. And then just a touch on vibrance and saturation. More like salt and pepper. So if we look at this now, as a before and after, just press Y, you can see what changes we've made just with that basic slider. The Basic Develop module in Adobe is a powerful tool for photographers looking to enhance their images. It offers essential editing features such as exposure adjustment, contrast enhancement, and color correction. It's very user-friendly, so you can easily manipulate the sliders to refine your photos, making it accessible for both beginners and experienced editors. With options to adjust highlights, shadows, blacks, and whites, the Basic module provides a solid foundation for achieving your best results. Well, I do hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like the video and subscribe to our channel for more quality photographic content. Until the next video, keep it sharp.